Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Always an Expat, a podcast dedicated to elevating expat stories, brought to you by fellow expat, yours truly, Richard Taylor. My guest today is Barry Lynch. Barry, originally from my neck of the woods in Lancashire, has been living in the US for roughly the last 20 years and is currently the SVP of Field Services at PTC. But, much more importantly, Barry is also the theme park bazzer from YouTube, where he has over 11,000 subscribers, who he entertains and educates on life in Orlando, Florida, with his and Mrs. Bazzer and supporting public houses. So, suffice to say, this is going to be a good one. But before we get into it, I have to get some of the boring stuff out of the way. So, Always an Expat is not a financial podcast, but it is brought to you by Plan First Wealth. Plan First Wealth is a business I founded and run today, and we work with successful British expatriates living across the US to help them make the most of their opportunities, avoid the expat landmines, and ultimately to retire happier. Now, for the avoidance of any and all doubt, when I say successful British expatriates, this is not purely a financial metric. To regular listeners, I hope it is evident by now that I strongly believe that just the mere fact of leaving one's home, starting a new life in a new land, somewhere else far away from family and friends, and growing and changing and learning, that is real success. And that's what this podcast is all about. Elevating expat stories, the highs, the lows, and most importantly, the lessons. But with that being said, whilst Plan First Wealth LLC is an SEC registered investment advisor, the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Plan First Wealth. Information presented is for educational purposes only. Whew. Now I've got that out of the way. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Hi Barry, welcome to Always an Expat.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me along.
Absolutely, of course. Right. Well, it's always good to speak to someone from my neck of the woods. You know, I love, as I hope is obvious by now, I enjoy and appreciate all expats, all British expats, all European expats. But there's something particularly special about people from the Northwest. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, right, with that in mind, Barry, would you mind telling us, start from the beginning, tell us how you got here, how you ended up in this unfortunate position, sat here talking to me?
Yeah, well, we actually moved to the US about 18 years ago. We came here. I worked for an American-based company called General Electric back in the time in the UK, in Lancashire, and an opportunity came up in 2005 to relocate to the US it was either Boston or Virginia where the offices were. Myself and my wife have been looking at thought about relocating for several years, but with kids and with a family, it's going to be about timing being right. And this opportunity came up, and we just really took the approach of, let's try it for a year. What have we got to lose? I'd rather do it and maybe come back rather than not do it and then kick myself for not taking the risk. And it's all about, when you're doing this, it's all about risk and weighing up the risk. So we did it in the safest way we could, which was to take this role, but knowing that we could come back. We didn't actually sell the house for a year, because back in that day, I think you could take like a mortgage holiday for a year. Mm-hmm. So we kept the house, didn't pay the mortgage for a year, and used that money to pay for the rental.
Wait, can you actually not pay anything at all?
Yeah, back in the day, there was it was called like a mortgage holiday. You could take a year out. It was with the Woolwich, I remember. Probably don't do it these days, but it was like you could take a year off and not pay a mortgage. So that's how we had our safety net of, we were able to then use that money to pay over here. And we rented for the first year because we didn't know, would we like it, would we not like it? And I think we rented actually the first 2 years. So that was kind of let's go try it, let's go see if it works, because we had, our kids were, I think at that time, were 7 and 11 or something like that when we came over here. And the dog came as well. Could the dog cope with the American accent of barking? I'm not sure.
But so Barry, where are you? Where are you in Lancashire?
In Lancashire, we were in a town called Barnoldswick, which was kind of near Burnley. It's about 30 miles from Liverpool, 30 miles from Manchester. Uh-huh. And it was, right in the heart. It's where my wife was from, and I was from, and it's the whole family. So we were kind of the strange people. We left the village, so to speak.
I'm thinking, what's that comedy series? He's a
Yeah, yeah.
local. He's a
You
local.
local? Are you local?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
we left the village, but I was always like that because even when I first started my career, I used to work at Rolls-Royce in the town, and then I was like a service engineer, so I was
Uh-huh.
traveling around the world, around the country, and I'd come home on a Friday night in the bar or the pub and tell tales, like around the fire of this strange world outside Lancashire, where they had different money and different language. It
They
was
spoke
interesting.
all funny.
Yeah, but it was always like in my blood to be like a wanderer, and the same
Yeah.
for Maxim. But it was never, there was a difference between wandering on a Monday to a Friday to living in another country, and that can be quite daunting
Oh,
because,
hell yeah.
visiting on a holiday, we came to America every year on holiday, but it's very different living here as to anywhere in the world. I'm not saying that's specific to America. So that's why we said, okay, and I don't think you can get it by just going for a month, or you need to kind of live it. And that means the schools, the social security system, the pensions, all that kind of thing. So I was actually, I'm talking about being hired as a local employee here. So it wasn't like on a bubble. I wasn't like employed in the UK, paid an English salary and lived over here. Oh no, it was like you're gone. You're paid a US salary, you're paid a US pension, you're living in the US on a visa,
Mm.
which was for I think 3 years. So we knew we had
Mm.
3 years to try it. For we'd have to make a real decision: do we stay? Do we go? If people don't know, you kind of go on. If you come here on a working visa, it's usually like sponsored by a company, like this was by GE. So they sponsored us for the 3 years, and then after 3 years, I think after 5 years, we could go for a green card,
Hmm.
which we did, sponsored by the company. And then after 10 years, when the green card came for renewal, we decided to become citizens. And actually, it's dual. And I'm
Hmm.
American now. Dual citizenship between the UK and the US. So you don't forgive your UK passport, the right you've earned for any kind of pensions that you may have paid in over that time. But to become a US citizen, you then get access to all the full range of facilities that you would being a true citizen. And again, once you get to a
Jury.
citizen state, it's a little bit different. 'Cause when you're on a visa, if the company says your job's no longer available, you have to leave the country.
Hmm.
If you're on a green card, you're a little bit better because with a green card, you can go and get employed by different companies. You're not tied to that company that's sponsoring you. But I stayed with GE for 16 years. So it wasn't about getting an easy way into the country. It was a great company. Enjoyed working with them. Other opportunities came up, but I was there for 16 years and we moved to Charlotte. They gave me two options, Boston or Charlottesville in Virginia. And we wanted to stay on the East Coast because we have obviously family in the UK and we wanted to be able to get back in case there's an emergency or something happens and you're only one flight away to Manchester and, only 7, 8 hours. If it was a job in Los Angeles or the West Coast, I might have thought differently about that because that was a little bit too far. That was outside our risk bubble that we
Hmm.
created, a risk map
Hmm.
of what we were prepared to accept. And I advise other people to do that, what you're prepared to accept and what you're not prepared to accept. And then if it fits within your bubble, great. If it's on the border, it's a discussion. And if it's in the red and not in the bubble, then you really need to, decide, no, we're not going to do that.
I can offer some personal perspective on that because I spent 6 months living in San Francisco when I first moved here, thinking I was going to make a life on the West Coast. And I know it's not. California is a very popular destination. We've got a lot of clients there, but it's a long, long, long way away. It's
It
you
is.
feel it. You feel there's an ocean and a continent. And turns out I two bodies that size was too much for me, both in terms of the distance to get back, but also the time difference.
I was
Like,
going to
we're
say
what?
time zones. Yeah, we talk with our
Yeah.
family every weekend, and it's 5 hours normally. So we talk with my parents every Saturday or Sunday at 10 a.m., which is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But once you
Mm.
start going further over there, if people know it's like 8 hours
Hmm.
difference, so you're really out of sync with the UK. It's still weird. It's still weird seeing things like New Year's Eve, and I get lots of phone calls from my drunk family, and it's like 7 o'clock in the evening.
Mm.
It's like we're stone cold, so oh, congratulations. But you do get to celebrate twice. You get to have a little fizzy beverage at 7 p.m. and you get to have another fizzy beverage at midnight if that's your choice.
Oh God,
So,
I haven't seen midnight on New Year's Eve for at least the last 5 years. It's a point of pride in my house now that we're fast asleep by that time.
Well, we
We
most
opted
years.
out.
Where were we last year? But we were last year. I don't know. We were up at midnight. I don't know. We were. I can't remember. We were out somewhere. But
So just going back a second, we're in Barnoldswick. We're in deepest, darkest Lancashire, and you've got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. They're pretty important ages,
yeah,
and you decided to trial America.
yeah,
Talk us through that. What was it like
yeah.
arriving
Actually, they were
here?
9 and 13, so I was out, and I just think I remember they were 9. But yeah, but it was different. I mean, the kids were. We knew if we were going to make the move, we wanted to do it before they went to high school,
Hmm.
to senior school,
Hmm.
because once they're embellished in that and the whole education and exams, we felt that wasn't fair. Unfortunately, Ryan, our eldest, had already started it at his first year
Hmm.
at that school. Our daughter, obviously at 9, was still in, junior school. But we wanted to make the move. So when we came over, GE were really good with us. They flew us up, flew the whole. I think we're here on holiday, but they basically flew us up to Boston and flew us to Virginia to have a look around, and we took the kids with us so they could see what it was like there. And when we did move here, they actually put a person with us for a month for orientation. So they took the kids to school, they registered the kids, they did, they were there with us, kind of walk us through the process. I'd advise if anybody's going to do it, and this is just, my advice is do it when they're younger or do it once they're a little bit older. Actually, somebody contacted me maybe a month ago who was looking at coming to the US, and we had a long chat. Just social media came through, the YouTube thing. We're talking to them, and I think after explaining all the things I think his daughter was 16 and she was going to do her exams this year. And I kind of waved the red flag and then talked about all the things they had to do. And he messaged me back. And obviously, I told him, and I would tell anybody on this phone, go and get advice. I'm not an expert. Go speak to a financial advisor, go speak to a legal advisor, go get But basically, this person came back and said, we're going to wait a year until my daughter has done her exams.
Mm.
And then we're gonna come out. But I'd say, our daughter was young enough that she adopted easily.
Mm.
She is in Virginia, working up there. Our son never settled. He was a little bit too old at 13. And a year ago, he went back to the UK. He now lives in the UK. He lives in Barnoldswick,
He's gone
where
straight
I
back.
came
He's gone all the
from.
way back to
Yeah, he's
Barnoldswick.
back in
Right.
Barnoldswick.
Okay.
And he's got a good job there, and he's got a car, and he moved into a flat last month. But he was never for him. And whether he was just as an individual, it was never for him, or he was a little bit too old. He'd made friends. So it's hard with kids. I guess that's what I would say.
Did
And the
he go
younger, it's
in?
easier because they have the more they adapt more
Yeah.
easily than when they've got friends and they're at school and all that kind of thing.
Did he go into the final year of junior high and then
Yeah, he had to
start?
fall back a year. When he came, he
Uh-huh.
was in high school when he left England,
Yeah.
and then he had to go back into
Yeah.
middle school when
Yeah.
he came here. And his first exam he had was an English exam, and it came back with an F on it, and they'd circled all the words where he put the letter U in,
Oh man.
or a Z instead of an S instead of a Z,
Yeah.
and he was very unhappy, and we had to have,
Yeah. I
we
can.
had to have words about that. But he never settled from day one. He was always hankering. In fact, long story, he went back about 5 years ago for a year, and it never worked out. And then he came back to the US and tried it again, and then he always wanted to go back. So I'd say follow your heart. If you follow your heart and use your head to plan well, whatever you're doing. That's the only advice I could say. Be happy. You only get one chance, so be happy, whatever it is.
As he was going through high school, were you looking back with hindsight now, you might be able to say, oh yeah, it was clear he never quite settled and his heart was always elsewhere. Did you know it at the time?
Not really. I mean, it was only, no, no. I mean, you kind of keep an eye on things, but he trained to be a chef. He was enjoying doing. I think it was more visible once he left high school, and he never settled in a job.
Mm-hmm.
He did really well as a chef, then wanted to do something else, and he never found his groove. And I said to him, he's just turned 31 now, and I said to him when he was 30, you're young enough, do what you want to do. He's got no commitments. You're a single guy, no commitments. The world's your oyster. And to be honest, the reason we brought the children with us was to get the dual citizenship, because our vision for them was it wasn't cruel parents, you will come with us and you will do as you're told. It was if we can get them through the next period of their lives, they're going to emerge with dual passports, dual citizenship, and the world's their oyster. They can go and work, they can go and be wherever they want to be. Obviously, that's before the whole European Union thing, and at that point, you could go live in anywhere in Europe on a UK passport, no problems.
Yeah.
So it was really that was our vision for them, was as it is with anybody who's got kids, is to give them the best opportunities. That's all you can do. Set them up for success, and they got to live their own lives with you there to be there to catch them if things don't go well.
Right, it's a great vision. It's a shame our fellow British voters have buggered it up for us.
Well, it is what it is. The world changes. This can still, I mean, like I say, could still move back to the UK. And I was interested in him moving back to the UK was a lot of the issues that I had coming here, which was no credit history.
Yeah.
He can't buy a house because he has to be, I think, there 3 years or 2
Is that
years
right?
to buy a house. So he's renting. So it's interesting, even though we tried to preempt some of those, learning when I moved here about credit history. We've got a great credit history now because I put him on my credit cards. Great, but you can't get a house because you can't get a mortgage because he hasn't got a physical address, or he hasn't been a resident for so many years in there. Even though he's got, his not social security number. Yeah, social security number. He's still got all that. He was born there, so he's still a citizen.
Yeah, no, we had the passport thing. We had that with our kids. So our kids are born here, obviously American, and we're able to get them British passports. And that's wonderful. I love the fact that we'll be able to get them British passports. That opens up London to them in the future. Well, obviously the whole of the UK, but I'm thinking career-wise, maybe London. But I can't help but think, like, only a few years ago, it opened up the whole of Europe to them. And my oldest is learning French at school. He's going to a French school here. It's kind of a shame. There's still, Europe's still open to them. There's ways in.
Yes, it's just got more hurdles.
It's got more hurdles. It was frictionless before, and that was nice. I liked that. I lament it still to this day. I don't think I'll ever really embrace Brexit, to be honest with you. Although I did notice, there's all doom and gloom coming out of the UK, but I did hear recently that our stats got they get up. You get when the stats first come out, growth stats, they get revised later on. They got revised upwards, and now apparently Britain, from being considered the laggard of Europe, is actually doing the best, which took everyone by surprise. So I'm not for Brexit, but it's kind of nice to hear some good news coming out of Britain for once.
Yep. Always.
And of course, we had the chip maker floated this week, and I think that's quite exciting. So maybe I think the tech scene in Britain is the tech startup scene, AI scene is robust.
Yeah,
so,
UK's always been a country of innovators, small innovators. That's one of its strengths. Led to the Industrial Revolution back in the time. So it's good to see that there, and of course we've still got family there. So we're over at least once a year to go and see them, and interesting to see how things evolve there as we go.
Yeah. So, US, 18 years. Any surprises that stand out? Any challenges that you weren't expecting, or that really, looking back, were an obstacle that stands out?
Yeah, I now said the word dual. That was a no. I wasn't expecting that. No. I think the biggest obstacle we had coming here that caught us out was the no credit history thing. When we came over here, and obviously you're renting a house, you got to get a car, and if you have bad credit, you can get a loan. If you have good credit, you can get a loan. If you have no history, even GE wouldn't give me a credit card, and I was working for the company.
That's
because
crazy.
I had no credit history. So make sure you got cash. We had to buy the first rental car cash.
I'm back to thinking about British comedy shows. That's like computer says no.
Yeah, exactly.
Little Britain.
Yeah.
No, but I work here. Like, look at your computer harder.
That's what I said.
I'm
I
in there.
work for GE. No, you can't have a card. And the only way I could get a bank loan was to get it through the credit union at work at GE and pay something like 12% interest, and what was a time you could get a new car for 3%. But I paid it off quickly. So I would say that the only lifesaver, the only credit card I could get was an Amazon card, because I used Amazon.co.uk. And when I came to the US, I was getting desperate trying to find the card, and I went to Amazon and applied, and no problem, Mr. Lynch. And how much credit would you like? And so that saved the day. Because once I had a
Really?
credit card, because if you don't know, to get your credit history, you need to be renting, or it has to be a mortgage, or they look at your credit cards and how you use them and how quickly you pay them off. So once you get a credit card, you can start getting a credit history. Once you get a mortgage, you can start getting a credit history. And it was about 2.5 years after we got here, which happens to be when we bought a house, when we had a credit history that allowed us to get rates that were reasonable. But that caught us out. That was one gotcha that nobody told us about, that we never planned for, and was a little bit of a challenge to manage.
Barry, I had to give US Bank $300 cash for them to give me a $300 limit on
Oh yeah,
on a credit card so
yeah,
that I could just start building up a credit rating.
yeah.
It's just one thing you don't think about when you
You don't
land
factor
here
in
and
it.
you
And people
start.
say get it. People say, well, don't your UK bank count? No, it doesn't.
No,
I forget which bank I was with, but it doesn't count.
no,
Even if they're related, your credit doesn't transfer, I guess is the word I'm saying, and that goes both ways. If you go
yeah.
back to the US, the UK, it doesn't transfer anyway. So, but yeah, it's just
I was
there
living
you
in an Airbnb in San Francisco, which was not cheap. Trying to rent a flat, and with no credit history and no employment history, no nothing, and it became like a proper ordeal. And
yeah,
these things you're just not prepared for. You just like there's plenty of other obstacles in your way that you're thinking about, but not
yeah,
being able to secure a roof over your head
yeah,
when normally it's not a problem. It's not been hard before. You fill out an application, pay a deposit, and off you trot.
yeah.
And suddenly you've got to secure letters of good character and all sorts of
Oh
hoops to
yeah,
jump through.
yeah.
Yeah, that was an unpleasant surprise.
Yeah, and if you want to get letters of character, you have to have like a doctor or something like that. And when you first move there, you don't have a doctor.
Yeah,
It's like you haven't even got anybody in the US to give you a reference,
yeah. So when did you move to Florida?
That was 2020. That was part of our retirement plan. I'm 65. Oh gosh, in 2025. No,
Hmm.
65, 60. I'm aging myself. 60 in 2025. And back when I turned 50, we started our retirement planning. Where do we want to be? Where do we want to go? Because to me, these things are not an event, they're a journey.
Hmm.
And I wanted to be in the position. My dad retired at 58 and he's still going strong in the UK. And so when I thought, when I get to 58 or 60, that's my ideal. If I can make it work, that's my ideal retirement date. So we were looking. Our daughter was in university in Virginia, and she graduated in April. We paid off the final payments on that. And in November, we were scouting a place down here. And in January, we were down here. And so that was 2020 with like this 5-year plan to test out, can we live here? What's it like to live here? Buy a house, do a house up, do all the preparations so that we can pull the plug on kind of a retirement plan. Hopefully, I mean, things change in 2020. That's kind of our why am I saying 2020?
2025.
2025. Yeah, because that is our vision. 2020 is when we moved here, so 2025. And again, it's just a plan. It could change. As soon as you make a plan, it changes.
Uh,
But for us, you've got to have like markers or milestones to try and target. And so in 2020, we came down here as part of that. We were visiting 3 or 4 times a year we like roller coasters, so that was part of it. But when I hit 50, it's like, well, where do we want to retire? What ticks the box as far as somewhere we'd like to live when we're not working, or somewhere we want to move to? Like if I maybe want to get a part-time job to supplement, my income once I retire. Well, someone like Florida has a lot of service industry, parks. There's plenty of jobs. What I call like not salaried jobs, but hourly jobs, hour paid jobs that you could do. So all that went into. There's a lot of plan, a lot of thought went into it. But 2020 is when we came here and we did the same thing. We rented for a year. Could we live here in this wonderful heat to visit for 2 weeks? Venus temperatures when you live here in the summertime, and it was the same. We played the same game when we came to the US, even though it's a different part of the US. We rented, just to feel it out. Does it feel like us? Is it the place? And after 6 months, we said yeah, and we sold our house in Virginia. And then, and the reason is the other trick is the reason I could afford. I said last time I did a holiday mortgage payment to cover me. When you come to Florida, Florida doesn't take income tax from you if you live here. So basically, like you pay 20% tax on your pay packet every month. That doesn't get taken off you. So guess what? That became our rental payment for the rent. So we could afford to keep the house in Virginia and afford to live here for that period of time to test it out, knowing we could always go back if it wasn't working out.
One of my favourite quotes, touching on what you said before about you've got having a retirement plan, working towards it, but it might, who knows. One of my favourite quotes, I've already quoted it once today in a meeting, is I think it comes from Eisenhower, and it's the plan is worthless, planning is everything.
Yeah,
I think it's just wonderfully encapsulates the importance of planning. The famous one is obviously fail to plan, plan to fail.
Yeah.
But I much prefer the Eisenhower one because it captures it's the process.
Yeah.
It's the process. It's the affirmative act of doing it and keep doing it that matters more than anything. You've partially answered this, but I'm intrigued, so I'm going to ask it anyway. So you want to retire at 60, which is pretty young. What are you retiring to?
In what way? As in, what am I going to do? Or?
All right. So obviously, people think of retirement as in I'm retiring from my job, right? And that's great. Yeah. But the part of the equation that's often missed is what are you retiring to?
Yeah.
As in, how are you going to fill your days fulfillingly? How are you going to fill your cup once you retire?
I'm going to sit and eat Werther's Originals, and I'm going to put handkerchiefs up my sleeve. So I'm going to become that old person, this classic old person, sort of sitting there. No, get one of those high chairs that you can get in and out very easily. What it is, we want to enjoy. We're theme park people, so we want to enjoy the theme parks. We live here. There's a couple of things. I mean, the YouTube thing is wasn't really planned, but that's ticking along nicely. So that's something that takes a lot of time, and we could put more time into it when not working full time. We like to travel, but honestly, my jobs in the past have been traveling all around the world, and it's just more settling down a little bit, being here, enjoying the climate. We're not beach people. We want to be up doing things. So we're going to be out and about and doing things and going to parks. And it was our vision as a couple 20 years ago. Like, let's get up in the morning, let's go to the theme park, let's walk around, have a coffee, maybe go on a ride and come back, and that keeps us happy. DIY is another thing that keeps me busy, but I don't have I'm not going to go and start a new business. I've been in corporate companies for the last 30 years. I'm tired of travel. I think COVID taught us a lot about that. I used to be flying 3 weeks out of every 4, and
3 weeks out of every 4.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so no wonder you're retiring to being at home.
I'm retiring to being at home. Yeah. Which kind of and COVID helped with that, in the way that when that hit in 2020, I was confused, as many people were, and to be at home for, well, I think it probably upset my wife more than me, to be at home for such long periods of time was totally alien to me, because I think I said, I got my first travel job when I left Rolls-Royce in 1989, and I've never been at home since. In fact, when most of our major disasters have happened at home, like trees falling on the house, the water pipe breaking, my daughter breaking a leg, I've usually been in another part of the world on the phone to my wife saying, what can I do to help? Or saying, oh, your water's broken, it's lovely here, when she slams the phone down on me. But no. But the thing is, it's like I've always travelled. It's always been part of my lifestyle. And so, just actually being grounded and enjoying here. And that's why it was very important for us, and it's different for everybody who's planning retirement, of where do I want to be? Because this is where I am going to be. So pick a place I'm going to enjoy waking up every day and being there, as opposed to it being a location to go travel somewhere else, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So living your vacation destination as opposed to travel to. Although we do like travel, but yeah.
What was that?
That answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm now intrigued. So you spent 20 odd years plus traveling 3 weeks out of 4, having I imagine that's hard when you have a young family, especially when you've just
Yeah,
moved here and you're
yeah,
like, okay, guys, you settle in, I'm off.
yeah.
What was that like? Was that hard for you?
Well, even having a young family in the UK, I was the same.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my wife is the backbone of the family and has been. She's like the home keeper. She brought more or less brought the kids up. I was really sort of trying to get, drive our careers to get to the point we could do moves like this and do things. So it's been very different. I mean, I get many tales of coming home and suddenly we have a dog. I'm like, oh, I don't like dogs. She's like, you're never here. Okay, we got a dog. So, but you need a strong partner when you're doing that because raising a family takes two of you, and if one of you is away for a lot of time, then that's hard on the other one. On the flip side, all that travel meant we got lots of air miles and hotels. So when the kids were, gosh, I would guess they were sort of 5 and 7. We were flying in business class to the US on holidays because we had so many air miles. And at that point, they were worth a lot of money. So the upside was the family time we did get together was very good. We got to do some wonderful things. We took them to California. We took them to, Florida. We traveled around the US with them. So, it swings and roundabouts on that side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it kind of worked out. But that was just I've always been a nomad, I guess, always been a wanderer, and those are the jobs that I ended up getting, I guess.
Did the dog win you over in the end?
Yes, the dog did win me over
Good.
in the end. Our Podge is, and we will be getting another. He passed away, gosh, in 2014, but we will be getting another dog soon as we finish some more work on the house and got a fence in. So,
Good.
but we didn't. We both like travel. Where I think we've been to Japan this year and we've been to New York this year and we've been various places. So once we slow down a bit, and that's the thing people have to think about. What we thought about with retirement is it's not linear. You're gonna this and why I want to retire at 60 is live life, go out and travel and do these things while you can, as long as you've kind of don't beat your budget, if you get what I mean. As long as you plan to do it and you've got the cash to do it, then do it, because once we get to 70, we won't travel as much. I'm expecting if we're lucky enough to get that far, once we get to 75 and onwards, we're probably just going to stay here.
Yeah.
And we're probably just going to be local, and we probably won't. As you get older, travel gets harder and you don't want to do it. And so we want to spend the next 10 years getting that travel out of our system as much as possible. And that's also to do with your financial planning. You're going to draw more money in the first 10 years and you're probably going to do in the 10 or 15 years after. And that's why I say it's not linear. It's a curve. And we don't tend to get into debt. And if, maybe you haven't got that kind of money, then you have to plan around it. We have budgeted money every year to travel as part of our retirement plan to make sure we have some money there. And as you say, as soon as you make a plan, it changes. So if something happens and we need that money for something else, it will be used for something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's in the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the plan to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of dips off as you go forward.
Mm-hmm. Tell everyone about Theme Park Baza.
Well, that's a YouTube channel that I set up in 2020 during COVID to get me out of that funk of what do I do with myself? I'm used to being on a plane. I'm used to being around. Used to being all over the place. And so I think my wife was getting a bit, trying to help me find something to do and keep busy because, you're on lockdown. You can't go out. You could walk out twice a day, all that stuff. So she said, and a few people have said to me before, why don't you do YouTube? And it was really just it was a diversion. It was like, to get your head out, focused on something positive that you were creating something. And it really just started as a tool to distract me from the challenges of things that were going on at that time. It's still a weekend hobby, but what was originally, just was just something to keep me busy, now has grown into something that has got a life of its own, I guess. It's quite interesting. It's grown to a size now that it gives you a little insight into. We're not a big channel. we're not a big channel, but I know we were out last night in one of the parks at one of the events, and I think we got stopped 4 or 5 times by subscribers
No
going
way.
up and saying hello,
Did you
and it's a bit
really?
surreal when that happens. But it's nice. I mean, it's wonderful that people watch us, but our audience is mainly UK people
yeah.
who want to know what it's like to live the dream. What's the American dream like? What you have to do, and most of the people are not. It started off as a theme park, doing the theme parks, but people seem a lot more interested in when our AC system packs up, or when we have problems with the plumbing, what we do to fix it, because they're real life. A lot of these YouTube channels are like, teaching people about travel, and we do a bit of travel stuff when we go, but most people seem to like the stuff that goes on at home, which was not what we expected.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. So the first time I became aware of the channel, because obviously we're familiar with each other outside of just this podcast. I remember thinking it was a theme park review thing. But when I last looked, one, your subscribers have gone up quite substantially in a relatively short space of time. But two, I realised it's not really. It's more about educating people on what life is like in Orlando.
Yeah.
And the theme parks is part of that.
Yeah.
So
you got to remember, I created the name of the channel and the logo in about 20 minutes. I bought a camera on a Friday. I created the logo and registered it on the Sunday, and I filmed the first vlog on the Monday. And so it wasn't really a lot of thought went into it. I'm in Orlando theme parks. But then once you start getting an audience of subscribers, when you start, as you're in marketing, once you start messing around with brands and labels, it confuses. We've thought about rebranding it a few times, and we might do, but it's like a hobby. It's not like it's there to make money for us. It does make a little bit of money now, which is all welcomed, towards the spending money for the holidays and stuff. But it's not a career. It's not a full-time thing. I could stop tomorrow, and it would not, it wouldn't destroy me. I probably wouldn't, because I enjoy doing it. I'm doing it again as a distraction. You do something you enjoy, whether it's fishing, knitting, cycling, running. People do it because it gratifies them in some way, and the creativity of doing stuff, and music and video, and just a laugh a lot at what we do, because we're a little bit crazy people. So it's quite fun.
So you're going around theme parks, obviously, as the name suggests, but also you're documenting the trials and tribulations and ups and trip, like I say in the intro, trips to the pub, of life in Orlando.
Yeah, I think our second most watched vlog, it's got something like 50,000 views, is shopping in Walmart.
No.
Don't ask me why. Somebody said, "Why don't you go shop in Walmart?" Well, we normally go shop anyway. Well, why didn't you film it? So I just took the camera and went round and filmed it, and it went crazy. I mean, it's not like, I'm not a TikTok type, it didn't go viral, but for us, when we were getting like a couple of hundred views and it went to thousands, and again, it's the second most watched view because Brits are interested in American food and prices.
Well, I was about to say, do you have what's your insight? Is it just that? We're intrigued with looking at it and comparing Walmart to Tesco?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm not smart. A lot of people say to me, will you film this? Will you film that? Will you do that? And we're pretty random. If you've seen our channel, it's not like on a theme. One day it's, I think tomorrow is like we're off on an airport trip to Atlanta. Last week's was like the AC broke. It's like there's no like thing to hook them in. So as things happen in life, we film it. And if people ask us to do specific things, the one that's going out tomorrow, somebody said, "Hey, I normally don't book the holidays. My spouse was ill, and I had to do it, and I found it quite daunting. Would you do a vlog? It shows me how you book a holiday, book a flight, book a car. How do you check in at the airport? I've never had to deal with all that before." So we were going to Atlanta, so we just filmed the whole process of going online, booking a flight, guiding people about security and how you check in online and how you check your bags in. And for us, it's like, because I traveled all the time, it's like I never think about it. It's like going shopping. You never think about it, but you try and do something that's a little bit educational as well to people, because people seem to like that as well. So that just came from a meal with some Brits who were over here a month ago and asked me over a meal, and I'm like, yeah, why not?
Well, I thought you were going to say people were daunted on booking the theme parks because there might be packages and stuff, and that I can understand. But you surprised me that someone was like, "How can I book a holiday? How can I book a flight?"
Yeah, I mean, it's like, usually in a relationship, there's one who leads, who does that kind of stuff, and one who's kind of supporting it, but they never have to take ownership.
Mm,
But if somebody becomes ill or something, they lose somebody in the family, and it's very daunting to suddenly be, even online banking and things like that. If people have never had to own that before,
mm,
that's a huge, shift. Especially from our generation, it tends to be one or the, if there's a couple, it tends to be one or the other who manages more. Not just saying the other one never does it, but it's somebody tends to own
mm.
it in a
Yeah, yeah,
relationship from our
yeah.
generation. And it was like, help me learn how to do this because I may have to do it. Their partner became ill, and she was really worried that they were coming here, to the US. I've never checked in at an airport before. And again, a lot of those are eye-opening to me, saying I don't really, like I say, I'm not the smartest person, but if I can do something, if I have knowledge that I can share that helps somebody else, even one person, then that's my job done. It's like that's my only gratification is that people get something from it, whether a laugh or a bit of information. That's it.
So you're now getting regularly recognised in these theme parks by British holiday makers.
Brits, yeah, yeah.
Not fellow Orlando residents, although I presume you are as well.
Oh no, no, we did a get I get pinged every week. Can you meet us? Can you meet us? So we got to the point now, probably once a month for the last 3 months. We've just held a what do they call it? A meetup in Disney Springs. I think there was like 30 people there last
Really?
weekend, and basically we just give our time back for 2 or 3 hours, and they all come and we have a drink together and we have a chat, and it's just a way of saying thank you to them for giving their time up. And it's usually July, August, September,
Wait, these are holiday makers.
and a
These
lot
are
of them
holiday
are over.
makers, right? Not.
Yeah, yeah, they're all holiday makers. 90% of our audience is UK Brits, and they really are interested in the American lifestyle and the parks and what is it? What do you do there? How do you live there? How do you cope with it? What
What
happens?
what about what about the
And
locals though? Because there's a lot of Brits in Orlando that live there. Are they? Have you met many of them through this?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we have a few who we hang out with as well here as well. There's a lot on our street. There's a lot out here around that area. But I would say if you really talk about YouTube
Hmm.
specifically, it does tend to be more. Not saying we don't have American subscribers, but it does tend to be more the Brits of demographic mid 40s upwards who either want to live here, have dreamed of living here, might retire here, and there's just an interest. Same way we have interest. We watch a lot of YouTube for the UK. We watch people on canal boats and watch people camping and we watch people doing things that we don't do. But we're interested how life is going in the UK. So a lot of the vlogs we watch are from Northerners or anybody in the UK who's living there. So we can see how things are going there. It's that cross pollination of viewing your eyes through somebody else's, living through somebody else's eyes in a different
It's funny
location.
you mentioned canal boats. I, funnily enough, found myself watching and have now subscribed to a couple who live on a canal boat and just
Hmm?
it's funny when I was growing up, canals were like,
Boring,
but
yeah,
not just
yeah,
boring, just
old,
old
yeah,
and uninteresting, and the idea of living on one was just a complete non-starter. It would be a joke. But
yeah,
this looked fantastic, gallivanting around. Well, I mean, slowly gallivanting around the UK, canal side pubs. His pubs
yeah.
comes up every. My wife rolls her eyes. I'm sure she's like 3 miles away, and she's probably rolling her eyes. She can hear me talking about British pubs. She gets so sick of it. But like canal side pubs, it's like that looks good. I could do this.
But it's a bit of like, it's a bit of escapism. Life is, things don't always go well in life, and
Mm.
people have tough times. So things like YouTube are escapism. So whatever helps you sort of tune out of the world, and I get a lot of nice comments from people who've gone through tough times and say, you helped me with this, or you helped me with that. And it was just like being able to tune into something else, and just forget today's problems, even if it's only for 20 minutes. And that's not specifically us, it's just in general. I think that's as human beings, that's what we do. We're always looking at some way of, that kind of escapism at some point
Yeah.
to
And I'll
life.
just I'm taking a much more active role in the marketing of Plan First Wealth now, doing a load of content and videos and stuff. And I had I re-downloaded Facebook and Instagram for my phone to edit posts and check it and stuff. And the crap I got served up by the algorithm. You know, the opposite of what you're saying, this like soothing escapism. I don't know why, because these are new accounts, I hadn't liked anything. Maybe it's because of my age and demographic. I am served up like wealth porn crap. Like people stepping out of a kid stepping out of a Lamborghini, getting onto a private jet, flashing. Like, why are you serving these? So I just deleted. It's so toxic, that stuff. You got to try and make sure you find yourself in a place where you're getting served up stuff like this, like normal people. I think that's one reason why we're doing this podcast. We want to speak to normal. We work with successful people, right? So, but I don't mean like private jet successful. I mean like life successful. Have done big stuff, made bold moves, made it work, encountered challenges, overcome them. But it's normal people doing normal stuff, but bold. And I think there's value in that, and I want to promote these stories and somehow. And I'm not going to beat the algorithm. Let's be honest. There's obviously an appetite for these, for this nonsense that's all over the social media at the moment. I had a big break from social media. Sorry, I'm ranting right now. It's really media, and this was like me getting back into it, and it was just like, oh, I've been here 10 minutes and I'm off again. It was just horrible. Yeah. I can see it affects people.
It can consume. My attitude has been trying to surround yourself in positive things and positive people, and obviously YouTube brings a whole lot of negative people that you have to kind of ignore and put aside. But it seems like even TV was getting in during COVID. It was pretty rough what was going on, and I think it was around that time maybe before we just cut the cord. And that's why we watch YouTube or we watch apps like Netflix, because you can choose what you want to watch rather than have things pushed on you that you don't want to see. So, and again, we do that in life now. You know, we choose things as, you know, more. That's why most of my stuff is YouTube, because you can scan and say, yeah, I'll watch this or I'll watch that. We always just try and do positive things. We all know that, you know, there's negative things going in the world and negative things it does as they do other people. But the way our way of getting through it is just to try and focus on the positive. The glass is, you know, people say to me all the time, the glass is always half full. There's things happen for a reason. And if you can find the positives in things that are negatives, then it can help you. And we lost a family member a year ago, a close family member, and it really hit us hard. But for us, what that did was spur us on even more to push hard to focus on the retirement side of things, because he was so young and never got to enjoy that we were okay. We were like, you know, a bit on the fence, because, you know, one thing we're doing is renovating the house, which obviously people have seen on the vlogs, but the real driver for that, when you've got money in the bank and you're like, shall we save it for a rainy day? Should we spend it? And it's things like that had a big impact. And if there's really no positive from losing a family member, but the one outcome of that was it drove us to go full steam and say, yeah, we might not be here tomorrow. You never know. So let's get the house done. Let's get all the house renovated. So, you know, 2025, and we decide we want to retire, then we're taking the risk out the house. You know, new roof, new plumbing, new electrical, you know, whatever needs doing. Let's spend the money while we're working. And then when we retire, yeah, things can go wrong. But it's all about, I think I said at the beginning, it's all about risk. It's risk management. What do you want to do? And is it riskier to keep a lot of money in the bank? Or is it riskier to live in a house? Yeah, I don't know. People have to make that decision. But I know I'm ranting a bit there, but it's like that's one of the influences that, you know, where we try and look for the positives in every negative. And, you know, that kind of, you know, helped us change, you know, focus on things we were
doing. Reminded that life is not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
One of he's a mentor, not to me personally, but like he's kind of like the godfather of financial planning in the UK. He always says life is not a dress rehearsal. Like we all go through this. Like one day when I get here, when I get there, it's like this is what's that famous phrase? Life is what happens while you're busy making plans. You know that we're all well, not all, but I think most people are extremely guilty of that. We're living life. Life is happening to us while we're making. My day is just like one big logistical challenge. And I'm very much like, okay, when they're a bit older, and it's just gone up a notch because the oldest one's gone to a different school. So now if one person is taking them both to school, it's an hour and a half round trip. Like it's a serious logistical challenge. They are nowhere near each other, these schools. And then there's a whole host of things to do. You know, walk the dog when I get in, and then all this other stuff. and you just fall into this trap of like getting through the day, and then when the next one's in the same school in 2 years, it gets a bit easier. You're like, wait, 2 years? I don't just want to just wish away 2 years. Like
Yeah.
this is life is happening right now. I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Every day they're changing.
But it's hard. I mean, as I say, that's all about timing. Because when life's busy like that, you got so much going on. For us, it was when as I mentioned, as our daughter graduated, and we were like empty nesters. Then, okay, now we have time to do this. But everybody's got commitments in life, and things change. So to me, it's just about timing, what makes sense. When you got commitments like that with kids, you got to kind of see a lot of those through. There isn't that consumes the
Yeah,
time, so to
yeah.
speak. But you only have a finite amount of time, and I forget who quoted me. You can always get more money, but you can't get more
Yeah.
time. You could always get a part-time job. Even if we retire early and we haven't quite got enough money, or something comes up where we need a bit more for an emergency, chances are you can always get a part. And again, that's being in this area when there's a lot of employment. You can get a part-time job, but you're not going to get any more time.
Well,
It's like it is
one
what
of
it
the
is.
challenges here in the US that people who come from the UK and don't think about is when your father retired at 58, he had the NHS. You retire at 60,
Yeah,
and you have to be thinking about private healthcare for 5 years until Medicare
yeah,
kicks in, and that is a
correct.
serious cost here, serious cost, and that people need to
Yeah,
factor that in. And that I've had a lot of conversations with someone where they're like, "I want to retire at 60," and you say, "Have you thought about this?" And they haven't, and you show the reality, and it's like, "Oh, well, maybe it's either get a
yeah.
part-time job that'll cover it or something, or don't."
Well, that's what I did with you. I mean, I lived a year in this house, so I recorded all our electricity bill, gas bill, insurance. So I had a theme park tickets. So I had a good feel of what it cost me to live here for a year. And then I spoke to you lot, and then it was things like, yeah, you got to factor in $20,000 a year for health insurance to your 65. Like, okay, but what I was building to was, what do I need to live? What do I need to
Hmm.
live once I stop
Hmm.
working?
Hmm.
And like I say, that curve goes up and down, but it was more analytical in, real information. And again, that's something that I think I put out on the YouTube thing, was like, I just said, what does it cost to live in Orlando? And just went through every
Did
line
you
item.
really?
Again, very popular
Yeah, I
one.
bet it
This is
was.
how much my gas costs, this much my
Yeah.
electricity costs, insurance, dental, and went through everything, and gave a price. And but then again, it's all you mentioned before about the planning. Um, Planning is important for some of this stuff, just to be able to, you know, does it matter if it's 2025 or 2026? No, or 27? It's like, but you have to have something to aim for,
100%.
and then something to deviate from. Have a plan to deviate from,
100%.
than just, no particular plan or a timeline. Because to me, a plan is not a plan unless it has a beginning, a middle, and an
Yeah.
end. And you have to have a point in time when you say, this is the end, and then work backwards to now,
Yeah.
and say, what do I need to do now to get to this point then? And that can shift, but
Uh,
to me, that's just how my brain
well,
works sometimes.
Barry, I'm not trying to suggest that you should do this, by the way, but to your point, I cannot tell you the number of times we have brought on a new client who is desperate to retire. I mean, like, desperate. Just really fed up, wants out. And then we've essentially shown them they can. Or we've shown them they can very soon. And they don't. And it's
Mm.
but because their perspective's changed. Now they know they can. They no longer have to work. They're working out of choice. It's like this,
Yeah,
it's almost visible weight lifts off them. And it becomes a
yeah,
totally different ballgame. And then we speak to them like, yeah, I might do another 6 months. And then we'll caution them like, listen, don't leave life on the table. Don't work 6 months if you don't
yeah,
want to. Because that 6 months you ain't getting back. Life is not a dress
yeah,
rehearsal. They're like, no,
yeah,
now I know I can. It's kind of give me a new lease on life, career wise. And
yeah,
that's really telling. And it's about freedom. And having
yeah,
that plan and working towards it again. I think what you're retiring to, so it's a bit different for you. You're not running away from work. You're running to something, so
no,
that's very different.
yeah,
But let's say you got there at 2025, you might be in the middle of a project, or who knows, right? And you might be like, you know what, I've ticked that box, and I've got 6 months left in me, and I'm doing it because I want to do it, not because I have to do it, and that's
yeah,
a totally different
yeah,
ballgame.
yeah, yeah.
Has anyone that you're aware of been influenced by your YouTube channel and moved to the US? Have you met anyone here who has landed and said you were instrumental in that?
I have. I mean, I've got one guy, well, family, who we were talking to, and he was over here on holiday, and we've had a lot of dialogue backwards and forwards, and we were discussing he wants to set a business up here. So we were talking about businesses he could set up, and he put a business plan together. I haven't heard anything of it, so I don't know anybody who's, we've influenced to move here. But, we hopefully any of the advice we offer is helpful to help them make the right decision. I wouldn't like to think you know, enforce somebody to come here or whatever. But what we do is we're not all unicorns and rainbows on
Yeah.
our channel. It's more, this is the reality. And if you want to move here, that's great, but be prepared that these are the things you're going to have to. And it's the same, it's not particularly to Orlando. It's obviously for us, we're doing that. But anybody who moves anywhere, it's like being prepared for these things. So, again, if we can just make somebody smile or there's just a bit of information that's useful, that's great because a lot of these, there's a lot of, and I'll go back to what I said earlier, and people who do approach me, like I said, I say go speak to professionals, go get financial advice, go get legal advice. You're speaking to somebody who moved here 20 years ago. Things have changed. They're not the same as they were then. And you just, it's worth paying the money for expert advice if it stops you making a big mistake or gets you something back in the long run. Like I say, it's always good to pay for good financial advice, for doing your taxes or whatever, because they can save you money in the long time. But you have to you speculate to accumulate. You have to invest. And it's the same, and we talk about the same, if we have problems in Virginia with our trees, I knew nothing about trees. So I paid a tree person to come in and look at it and said, hey, this has got this whatever disease, and if we don't take these 5 down, you're going to lose the whole area of those trees. So it cost me $3,000 or $4,000, but I would have lost 30, 40 trees, which would cost me $500 a time to take down. So I mean, whatever is in life, it's plumbing, electrical, trees, finance. If you've got something there, pay an expert at least to give you an opinion or a view on it, and then you can make a decision if you want to move ahead. But those people are smarter than me. Speak to a tree person who knows about trees. Speak to an electrician who knows about electrical stuff. And you don't have to use them at the end of the day. You don't have to go forward with it, but get advice because there's people smarter than us who that's what they do for a living, whatever it is. And what you'll find in America, a lot more than even the UK, is people are very focused on a certain thing. I know my wife has a problem with the knee, and it's like, oh no, it's not the left knee, it's the right knee. I'm joking, but you know what I mean? They do the knee, they do nothing but the knee. They don't do the leg, they don't do the foot, they do the knee. And it's the same. We found that in jobs where people work over here, they're very much granular, whereas the UK tends to be broader in the things they cover, more general in the things they cover. What that means is you do get expertise over here because that's just what somebody does. There's people who just do US law. There's people who do expats who come to the US. That's a different law. Or UKs who go back to the US. So there's a number of different skill sets.
I think,
and all I would advise people is budget to leverage those skill sets when you need to in life, because it could save you a lot.
I'd strongly agree with you as well. I think it's especially important coming to the US. Coming to the US is not like going anywhere else, in my opinion and experience, because there's additional challenges, nuances, requirements, and the penalties, and people just come here, turn up, and then think everything's going to carry on as normal. Especially we get seduced by the same language and the fact that we think we know it from TV and movies, but it's not the same.
I do get asked like every week, how do I move to the US? What do I do in the US? And it's usually the 3 things. From my take, you get sponsorship, or you come and start a business here, or you got somebody who's a citizen that you can come to. But really, there isn't really a shortcut. There is no, what's the easiest way in? Well, there isn't one. You either get sponsored by a company. And I used to say my one advice is, like, if you want to come here, go work for an American company, if it's in the UK. That's what I did. And then see if there's opportunities to move over with that company to get you through that. They did you were wonderful. They did all the legal stuff. I had a legal document this big as to why I should be hired over here instead of a US employee to come over here. And they spent a lot of money. Obviously, I signed like I will not leave for 5 years type agreement with them to get me over here. Like I say, I stayed for 16, so that wasn't part of it. But there's a lot, as you say, there's a lot of legalese. There's a lot when we came over, we had to go and have medicals and all kinds of stuff. And it went on for nearly a year for all the things we to do to finally get, accepted here. And even with the citizenship, you have to do exams. You have to go, I don't know if we had to have medicals again, biometrics we had to go and pay for and all that stuff. So, there's many steps. but there's people who can help
Yeah.
and know those
Yeah.
steps and just lean
Yeah.
into them.
Right, well, all right, this is a podcast about being an expat in America. So one of the things I like to ask about is the American dream. It means different things to different people. It gets some people rather exercised and upset, which I kind of understand, but it's interesting nonetheless. So with that in mind, what does the American dream mean to you?
To me, it means possibilities, opportunities. The thing that attracted me over here was the attitude of people, which was can do, go do, and not be asking why you're doing it. And I saw if we're going to come over here, if we want to kind of build a career, then that is a very positive thing for us and for the kids. So get that mindset of can do, will do. And like I said, I started my career as an electrician in Bonalswick in Rolls-Royce and ended up being the CEO of a company, small company in Canada, which I never would have got that opportunity if I'd stayed in. I don't think, I mean, who can say? But I wouldn't have, I couldn't foresee that being an opportunity to come up in the US, in the UK, as opposed to when we came to the US. And it's just like luck plays a lot into it, and connections play a lot into it. But networking over here was easier, and people believe. I never believed I could do that role, but people believe in you and give you the chance. There's more. There's less naysayers and more. Go do it. Go try and that. What are you going to lose? And for me, that is the American dream. Is there isn't really. I say to our kids and to anybody, there's no real limitations to what you can do. Go do it. Go believe in yourself. Obviously, you know me, so planning has to go into it and things like that. But why not? Why not? If you I said the same to our son, that you're 30 years old, you can be anything you want to be. You can go anywhere you want to do. Just find something you enjoy doing, because that usually means you're pretty good at it. So find something you enjoy doing that fulfills you, and go do it and see where it takes you. But there's a lot of opportunities, passion, and the fact that people give you that chance here. I think it's still quite unique to the US. Though people may naysay, and yeah, it's fine. But to me, when you ask me what is the American dream, that is what it is for me.
I agree with you. I think you said it best with can do, will do. I think that encapsulates. I think that's it. The rest was interesting, but I just stuck with me. Can do, will do. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
and not asking why.
yeah,
I love British cynicism. I do. It's part of what makes us us. But
yeah,
it does have its limiting factors. It can be limiting.
yeah.
In so yeah, I don't know what the solution. There is no solution. It's just different.
It's just different cultures and different approaches, and that's the biggest thing that gravitated us over here was I worked for American companies for like 15 years before I came here, and it was very different for working for European companies, not even just UK, but European companies in their outlook, and it was very refreshing just to have your eyes open to when people say, well, why not? And that's still true. That's still true today, even though the world has changed in 20, 30 years. I still passionately believe that's part of this world that we're in today in the
I
US.
can't remember who said this, but I think it's great. It was someone I was listening to talk about investments. Europe is a museum. Japan is a nursing home. America is a business. They were talking in terms of economies and investing and where, and I find myself thinking about that quite a lot. I've not actually been to Japan. I can't talk about Japan. They're not being derogatory about Europe. It's just old and it's got fabulous history and stuff, but it's not quite. America it is different. It is a bit.
Yeah, it's very different. And again, different cultures suit different people, and that's great. I mean, that's why diversity is very important. We all do different things, but we gravitated to this because of that was just something intriguing to go and see. Was it real? Could we make it work? And again, it was always like, well, we'll go back if it doesn't. But once we're here, and we get asked that question more than anything else, is would you ever go back? Would you ever go back? And the answer is very simple: no.
Yeah.
Like, no, we wouldn't. I mean, is it perfect here? No. Is it perfect anywhere? No. Do you ever buy the perfect house? No. So there's always cons and pros with everything, but we like the pros that are here. and we wouldn't go back. It's different over there. Where even though there's just the two of us now, we still, and again, due to modern times and modern technology and FaceTime, you can talk to people, you know, every week, every day. Maxine talks to some other like almost every day on the iPad. Communication wise, she said she probably talks some more now than she did when she lived in the same town, because it's just a different world.
Wunderbar. Right, well, Barry, on that note, where can people find you?
Here.
What's your address? What's your telephone number? Put it out there.
Yeah. 1 at the High Street, Orlando, Florida. Yeah, so we're if people want to, you mean like from the YouTube side?
Yeah, well, just where if anyone wants to reach out to Barry, or anyone wants to check out the YouTube, where can they find you?
So if anyone wants to reach us, as you were saying, it's Theme Park Bazza. That's BAZZA, all one word, themeparkbazza.com. If you go there, there's a link to YouTube. There's a link to our Facebook page. There's a link, up there, and you can basically message me. There's at themeparkbazza.com as an email address as well. You can email me. Always open to having a chat. Again, you'll get the whole truth and nothing but the truth. When you ask me a question, there'll be no faking it. And we do try and offer. We can only share what we know, and we do try and give advice. As I say, we get asked every week from different people, different things, and we're happy to share what we know.
Super, great. Right, well, Barry, you've been great. Thank you for being a guest on Always an Expat.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Of course. See you soon. Woohoo.
It's slowly stopping the recording.
Oh, okay.
I hit stop, but apparently it needs an extra moment to stop.
Your tea must be cold by now, Barry.
No, it's all right. It's keep sipping on it. I was out late till 1 o'clock this morning in the park, so the voice is going a little bit. So.